Elizabeth Warren has been criticizing social media websites, including Facebook, and has a plan for breaking them up using antitrust legislation, or laws, I should say. And as a result, it appears that Facebook has taken down some of her ads. Now, Facebook claims, no, we weren't retaliating. I'll give you their exact statement in just a minute, but it does seem weird that they took down her ads following her criticism that these social media sites are just too big. Now, I'm gonna give you a few videos where she explains her proposal. This was while she was being interviewed over the weekend. Take a look at her proposal, and then I'm gonna rage about the second video.
The giant tech companies right now are eating up little tiny businesses, startups, and competing unfairly. Look at it this way. Someone like Amazon runs a platform, you know, the place where you buy your coffee maker and get it delivered in 48 hours, and that's great. But in addition to that, they're sucking up all that information about every purchase, every sale, and every one of the other little businesses that are offering their products on Amazon. And when Amazon sees one that's profitable, they say, think we'll go into business against them now that they've got all this extra information. And they put their own business out there to compete on selling coffee makers, put themselves on page 1, put the competitor back on page 6, and the competitor's business is just gone.
So she's actually right about that. And I think most people have experienced it if you've ever used Amazon. Usually if you search for a product, the product that's being sold by Amazon will be one of the first search results. And then other vendors who are actually selling the product at a cheaper price will be a little more difficult to find. But I love the fact that she's paying attention to this issue. You have situations where like Facebook will purchase other social media accounts or platforms, yeah, like Instagram, for instance. And what that does is it eats away at any competition, and then they become way too big. They're these massive corporations that have complete control, almost like a monopoly.
Yeah, I'm pretty conflicted on this one. So in both meanings of the term. So Facebook, just so you guys know my conflict of interest, Facebook and Google are arguably the two largest partners. So I'm throwing that out there so you see where my interests lie. And we've had good times, we've had bad times with those platforms. But now what I think's my opinion, I hope I'm not being biased, is that look, China's building their own platforms, and we don't exist alone in the world. And so if we pick apart our platforms and then the rest of the world builds giant platforms, they're not necessarily gonna have the same regulations as us. So you gotta keep that in mind. And I see, and I have to deal with the downsides of these platforms every day, and they materially affect our business. On the other hand, they also make a lot of things possible. Would we have this much audience in one place if it wasn't for YouTube and Facebook? That's a fair question. We use Amazon all the time. We have iPhones. Now, I want them to not take control of our government. And so it concerns me greatly when Apple pays no taxes, when Amazon pays no taxes, because of all the corporate loopholes that they pay the politicians to put into the law, right? So we have to hold them accountable. Breaking them up, I'm conflicted about. I'm not sure that it's the best idea.
Yeah, look, I really think it depends on how this proposal would be carried out. Because while I agree with you that there are great components to these platforms, including independence and freedom and democratization of information, there's also a huge problem where they become so big that they're the only platforms that are influencing discussions, important discussions in any given country. So one of the biggest issues during the last general election was, the emergence and the spread of fake news, which was real. That was a real problem. But would it be as big of an issue if we had some regulations in place to kind of mitigate that ahead of time, right? So again, the devil is in the details, as always. But I do like that there's a little more focus on this, because I do agree that some of these platforms have become too big, too powerful. And think about the impact they have on anyone. Like if let's say you're a loudmouth, anti-corporate greed news host, and you're constantly, spreading that type of content on their platform, can they retaliate against you once they're big enough and once they're, taking advantage of corruption enough? And I think that they can eventually. I think that's a problem.
So the core of that, and we'll get back to Elizabeth Warren and did Facebook actually take down her ad on purpose, et cetera, but is that in the beginning, why these platforms like YouTube and Facebook were fantastic was because they got rid of the gatekeepers. So in the old days, if you wanted to do a show, you had to convince radio or TV executives to put you on air. Good luck, brother. It was nearly impossible. To be fair, it's totally possible if you were willing to toe the line. So if you were willing to go out there and go, the status quo is wonderful. I'm all buttoned up. I went through all my local news things, doing all the fake news. I've read all the prompters that all the producers ever put, the scripts you put in front of me, I read it, and I'm ready to make sure no one rocks the boat. Then you had a shot. But if you're gonna do an interesting show, good luck to you. There was almost no chance of that happening. So they got rid of the gatekeepers, which was amazing. But they got so large, they became the largest gatekeepers there are. Now, very, very rarely are they ever doing it on an individual level, like Zuckerberg or someone running Google going, I will now eliminate that person because I don't like their opinion. No, but the algorithm is the gatekeeper. And so the algorithms now run our lives. And it's a good question as to whether anything could be done about that. So that's what we have to grapple with if we're looking at this in an honest and interesting way.
So I want to show you a little bit more from the interview that Elizabeth Warren did on Face the Nation. This part really stood out to me, and I'll explain why after we watch.
Think of it this way. It's like in baseball. You can be the umpire or you can own one of the teams, but you don't get to be the umpire and own the teams.
And let me just get this clear. If you had your way, Facebook would have to sell off Instagram. Amazon would have to sell off Whole Foods.
All those little businesses that they're running, competing businesses, yep.
Who is the federal government to tell these companies they have to do that?
There's antitrust law. It's been around for more than 100 years. And the federal government has done this many times. For example, broke up Standard Oil, broke up the great monopolies of the late 19th century and early 20th century.
So the question, who's the federal government to do this? Are you a journalist? Like, you're interviewing someone on this topic. Do you not know that we have antitrust laws? I mean, maybe it's easy to forget since we have lawmakers who don't actually implement them these days.
Yeah, I wonder, was he being facetious? Was that like a purposeful softball or something? Because if he was being serious about the manner in which he asked that question, it's really embarrassing.
Watch the entirety of the interview. I do not believe that he was being, sarcastic. He was being serious. He seemed dismissive. His tone seemed dismissive throughout the interview, which was a little frustrating, but I'm like, maybe I'm reading too much into it. And then when he asked that question, who's the federal government to get involved in this?
Well, you know what? That only proves the point I made earlier, which is that if you want to get onto the old media, you have to protect the status quo and corporations, because they're all giant multi-billion-dollar corporations. So they hire guys to go, who's the government to mess with beloved corporate America, right? Well, antitrust laws have been around forever. Look, so why do I like Elizabeth Warren? So I might not agree with this proposal. I have to think about it more. I haven't made up my mind. And to me, like, Facebook selling off Instagram is not the worst thing in the world either, right? They'll survive, okay? So it depends on how you do it, if you do it, etc. But I trust that she's smart. She's going in the right direction in terms of trying to protect American citizens as opposed to corporations, right? And that if she comes into power, even if I don't agree with this particular policy, I trust that she's smart enough to handle it in a way that is sensible, rather than going in, blundering in, going, I'm just going to do whatever is good for me and et cetera, and my donors, because right now all she has is small donors, so she's not taking corporate PAC money. So it's something to consider. Now back to Facebook pulling the ads.
Yeah.
Let's give you their statement, because they have a plausible reason why they pulled the ads.
Well, let me give you some information on the ads, and then I'll give you Facebook statements. The ads, which had identical images and text, touted Warren's recently announced plan to unwind anti-competitive tech mergers, including Facebook's acquisition of WhatsApp and Instagram. So these ads had everything to do with the policy proposal that Warren's putting out there. And of course, big tech doesn't like this policy proposal. So Facebook says that no, we weren't retaliating. We removed the ads because they violated our policies against use of our corporate logo. In the interest of allowing robust debate, we are restoring the ads.
In other words, we got caught. No, but honestly, I have no idea if the algorithm normally picks up Facebook's corporate logo and automatically bans the ad. It is possible. I'm a little skeptical about that in this case. I mean, but to be fair to Facebook, she's punching him in the face. And so they, like, would you run an ad on your company attacking your company? I don't know, maybe you would. I don't mind when Republicans run ads on us because that means they're paying us, and that's not likely to work anyway.
But look, this goes to show you part of the problem that Elizabeth Warren is trying to address. Because if Facebook becomes one of the few places where people can reach out to their constituents or to their audience, and they get censored like this, well then what can you do after that? They're already too big, they're already too powerful. You have no way of fighting back against that. And so I think that there are issues with big tech right now. I think they do need to be addressed. And I agree with you that it really matters how it's gonna be carried out, right? And so I think that Facebook and YouTube and all these social media platforms are important, and they do give people a little bit of independence, but at the same time, they can become too powerful to the point where they're actually counterproductive to information being spread.
So again, I'm not sure that these particular companies should be broken up. I do know the one merger that I am not interested in is when they merge with the government. And oftentimes it's exactly what happens. Their lobbyists go and buy off a lot of the government officials, and then next thing you know, government's working for them instead of us. And so that has happened in a lot of industries. We're focusing on this one, but I mean, oil already did that, the bankers already did that, the pharmaceutical companies already did that. And I would address that before I got to these companies, because Facebook, by the way, for all of their problems, actually does not donate a lot of money to politics, and that progressives have real issues with them, including antitrust. And then you got people like Ted Cruz who turn around and agree with Elizabeth Warren for the first time in his life. He's like, where's my check? Zuckerberg, you haven't sent me a check. Yeah, I agree with Elizabeth Warren. Facebook's a problem. All the other ones giving me checks are totally oil companies. Are you kidding me? They're bribing me daily. It's legal bribes, so they're totally fine. We should give them more subsidies. But Facebook, I got a problem with Facebook.
It is kind of amazing to see how politicians act once you get the money out. All of a sudden, they can find agreement with the other side.
Exactly.
It's pretty amazing.
That's right. Wolf-pack.com. Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today. For more exclusive content, join now at tyt.com/join.